Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link together with a thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Chocolate Saiyan, Mitchell from Australia, Brian's Logic, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
G'day.
Good day.
Yeah, good morning.
Is it actually daytime there, Mitch?
No, good evening. It's quite late.
Oh, I'll rephrase that. Yeah, nah. Isn't it nighttime?
Nah.
Any evidence?
Good evening, my antipodal brother, Mitch. What's going on, brother?
Yeah,
Oh,
hello,
shit,
over
you're
in the colonies.
me.
Good to have you.
Sounds like an upside down relationship.
Antipodal. Not upside down. He's not. Are you doing handstands right now?
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for making my point void. No, not upside down, right? Upside down means not the right way up. Well, as far as every Australian or any other South Hemisphere begging the question positioning person is concerned, they're not upside down, they're the right way up. But they are antipodal on a sphere from someone in the Northern Hemisphere, opposite to their position, both with feet attached to the presupposed spherical surface. That means that you've got a line between them through the sphere and arrows pointing at their feet at the end of each line. Well, that's neither of them are upside down. It's just a bugbear of mine when people say that word, when referring to the nonsense assertion that people are antipodal when travelling 180 degrees around a presupposed spherical surface. Anyway.
So antipodal is the British word for upside down?
No.
You have to be highly
No.
specific. Nathan's right.
Upside down and antipodal are very different things.
Well, not according to the pictures I see.
That's why I use the word antipodal.
Anyway, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge, that would be a horizon formerly known as Earth curve, for us to make any assumptions that as we travel towards it and drop occurs at 8 inches per mile squared, we're actually going to arrive antipodal from where we began.
Wow.
What was the question?
That was one way to throw me under the
Is
bus.
there any evidence that we have 8 inches per mile squared drop, i.e. a physical limitation called Earth curve, to make the assumption that we will arrive antipodal when we travel towards that drop at 8 inches per mile squared with a physical edge called Earth curve? In short, any evidence of Earth curve?
No.
Flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris.
That's evidence of a flat Earth.
Well, I got nothing then. I mean, you look at something, I gave you something. What you
Look,
want
right.
from me?
We're encouraging the audience. We're encouraging them to give us proof of a globe, like it's claimed to be. And you're like, well, I got flat Earth elevation angles that can only take place on a flat Earth. And I go, well, that's for a flat Earth. Well, that's all I got. That's not Earth curve. Brian,
Well,
you're
Nathan,
useless to me.
Nathan, there's a term people use. There's a term people use all over the world. This is an upside down world. I've never heard anyone say this is an antipodal world.
The positioning is antipodal. The world could be upside down, meaning not right. Way up is the reference when you use that as an analogy. If the world's upside down, it means that your life's falling to pieces. Or you've just been burgled and literally all the tables are the wrong way around because they've been looking for your gold. Or whatever. But I'm just saying it's not the same as antipodal. Just look it up. Anyway, let's move on. I don't want to talk about antipodal positioning anymore because we don't have it. It violates the celestial sphere model to assert antipodal positioning. You couldn't take elevation angles to navigate across what they call hemispherical distances in terms of the hemisphere moving between one and the other. That you can do on a flat map with flat Earth elevation angle measurements to do it. Now, if you are to assert that you travel and arrive antipodal from your positioning, then your map and your positioning data doesn't work anymore. It doesn't reference being antipodal. That's my point.
Sounds like a pole dancing move.
The reason I like that word and I like saying that is because when I have these discussions with, normies, coworkers or whatever, it's like people don't really envision that. It's almost like they all believe they live on a ball, but they're not really sure how a ball would actually have to work in reality. So they don't understand the positioning of where people would be on a ball. And it's weird because you believe you live on that thing. It's like, it's just weird that people can't make that link. That's why I like bringing it up.
So
I mean,
if you imagine,
equate it to
hold on, just let me just speak to what you just said, Mitch. So if you've got one girl on a pole doing hip swivels, and then there's a beach ball placed on her bum, and then there's another girl sat holding the pole but just with splits on top of it, then their bums are antipodal from one another on that pole.
Holy shit, I just got it. I was going to say, yeah, is it like you're at one pole, on a sphere, you're at one pole, antipodal is on the other pole?
Yes.
180 degrees around the pole, yes.
From any position, though. So you are, I believe, on a globe, approximately antipodal from the UK, are you not?
Yeah, approximately.
On the globe
model, sphere.
On the reification of a sphere Earth we don't stand upon, when projected from the celestial sphere model and the flat Earth it uses with the elevation angle measurements we actually take when we measure, transposed through the, goddamn, why can't I remember the name of this, Haversine, I believe is the correct term, formula, to transpose that onto a globe surface, to then do a globe Earth projection from that spherical surface onto a cylinder, to then roll it out back flat again with the longitude and latitude lines maintained in a grid for you to navigate on the flat surface with angles. Wow, that was a mouthful. It's a long road from flat back to sphere, back to flat again.
I think antipodal from Mitchell would be probably Florida or somewhere like that, Southern California.
Oh,
so,
okay, my bad.
So 10th would be antipodal from Mitch.
Okay.
I'm not antipodal at all. I like all types of dogs. All
Just
breeds.
didn't. We have to pepper these things with disclaimers, don't we, lads? On the globe reification model, after the process described by me, which will now have to be disclaimed again, when you take elevation angle measurements to Polaris and create something that is utilising a sphere of the heavens known as the celestial sphere and plot it on a flat plane where you got the angle measurements from, you can then apply the Haversine formula to transpose that onto a sphere Earth, the one we show in the last few shows with the void Earth in the middle where the angle comes from. That's the transposition from flat plane in the middle of that sphere with a sphere of the heavens around it, aka celestial sphere model, flat plane that it uses, up to the globe map internally with you on a concave Earth looking up at the map that's projected up by way of that formula. So that's how you go from flat plane to globe to then have a cylinder wrapped around that globe to then project out the details off the sphere back onto a projection, what they will call a globe projection. So they've got an excuse when you have a flat map handed to you. Oh, well, it's obviously referencing a sphere. It's got latitude and longitude lines. It's come from a projection from a ball. What they don't tell you is the ball came from a projection from a flat Earth map. That's the bit we're harping on about at the moment, because I think it's incredibly important. I only took it out of the title for the live show today, but I still think we should harp about this indefinitely. The globe's a flat Earth model. That's its origins.
Can I make a slight reference to Lord of the Rings? Bilbo's book, From Here and Back Again? From sphere
hold on a second.
to flat again.
Just taking a quick straw poll in Skype, and the answer is no. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Now, hang on. I mean, I was going to say something. Arwen came in, and now he's done, and we need to answer him, and then I'll be next, if I may.
Answer? No, you don't.
You don't want an answer to what you said?
Oh, if it's punny, absolutely.
Not
He was
from
just
me.
giving
You
a
were
pun.
asking him. Oh, gosh.
Asking?
Forget
Sorry,
it,
I was
Arwen.
just saying something.
Wins
Oh,
here.
okay.
It's all gone to chaos. Bloody hell.
Oh, gosh. Nathan,
Oh, God.
all the angle measurements, where do they derive from?
Flat plane. Can't not.
So
Got to have a
not-
horizontal
so
baseline.
So anti-flat plane, not antipodal then.
You can't be anti-flat plane. When you're travelling across from GP to GP, if so doing, not that you would, but you know what I'm talking about in terms of the navigation points to keep them simple, you're travelling across the baseline that you formed when you measured the GP positions to the stars. So you're traversing a
but
flat
I'm-
plane. You're not ever going to be antipodal.
That's my point. So this whole thing antipodal in how they navigate, it goes to the center of the Earth, and they're saying antipodal. Well, if all measurements are coming from the center of the Earth, and the center of the Earth is a plane, how can you be antipodal?
You can't.
Thank you.
In all seriousness, where the hell did the globe come from when people were measuring flat Earth elevation angles? What idiot just said, no, we need to make this into a sphere? Like, where'd that originate from? You said the Haversine formula, but who just goes, nah, it's got to be a sphere?
Well,
hold on. That's a
supposedly
big
the
question.
Greeks say it's a perfect shape.
Let me just answer him. That's a very big question, which you'll have to find from one of my videos with Johnny Sarucci. So go and watch the 5 hours of history of flat Earth if you want to know where the globe came from. That's where you'll find it. It came from the church. It came from the Roman Catholic Church. That's where its origins lie, if you want to know the answer to that question.
Thank you. I'll go and watch it now.
Well, not now. You're here. Johnny Sarucci. Flat Earth... what's it called? I forget what the term was back then. Flat Earth United Kingdom with Johnny Sarucci. There you go.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Just don't ask me to spell Sarucci. Maybe someone else can help me out on that score.
Cirruci, I think.
should know.
I'm going to go with...
Italian.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm going to look it up. I owe the guy that much. He was exceptionally good guest.
S-I-R-R-U-C-H-I?
So, one more time. I'm going to look it up anyway, but yeah.
S-I-R-R-U-C-H-I, Sarucci, or C-I-R-R-U-C-H-I.
I mean, what's the guy's problem, though? Like, he's measuring flat Earth elevation angles. Everything's flat. Everything looks flat. You have to treat everything as flat. And then he just goes and says to himself, where's the furthest from flat that I can make this? I know, a sphere. Just to muck with people, you know?
Yeah, it seems like it's just started off as a joke and someone took it serious.
Well, it's a sick joke. I don't like where it went.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I'm just trying to mute my laughter, but yeah, in all seriousness, how can people say that we live on a globe? Can we have some globe evidence, globers?
I'll rattle my
Johnny
life.
Cirrucci, C-I-R-U-C-C-I.
What was the first three letters?
C-I-R-U-C-C-I.
So Johnny Sarucci, there you go. So I've got two videos, managed to find them as someone gave me the spelling. The first is called The Why of the Globe Lie. And that's Flat Earth United with Johnny Sarucci. JOHNNYCIRUCCI. And the second is called Flat Earth UK, The Jesuit Heliocentric Deception with Johnny Sarucci. JOHNNYCIRUCCI. So those are the two videos I did, and one was a couple of hours long, one was just over an hour long. So yeah, there's about 3 hours of material that will give you the answer to this in historic terms. Johnny Cerrucci is one of those few people that I can say I know how in depth he went, and you'll get this from when I talk to him. He's very well researched, so I don't need to preface it any more than that. He's a good guy. You'll tell straight away he knows what he's talking about. Anyway, that's it. Go and check it out. So should we move on, housekeeping-wise? Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Well, there's a claim that the Earth turns under pendulums, correct? That's the globe claim.
Sorry, turns on the pendulums? What?
The Earth rotates under pendulums. That's the globe claim, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. So there's a claim that there's a 15 degrees an hour drift that is asserted as being proven by one Bob Nodell and others of... What was the group that actually did that? Was it anybody?
FE Core?
FE Core. So rather than just ascribing it to Bob Nodell, which is a bit unreasonable, it's just that's what the trolls do. They thank Bob for claiming he proved the assertion that Earth turns underneath the gyroscopic motion, and indeed pendulums is the same Foucault example, at 15 degrees an hour. That's the claim. Why would you mention it?
It'll be a bit... Why ever would I mention it? Well, I've so happened that I found a pendulum in Sydney that doesn't precess. So it'd be a bit of a problem for the globe believers if these pendulums should be precessing at a rate each hour, but this pendulum I found did not precess.
Okay, let me just check with you if you understand this. I'm pretty sure you do. Do pendulums precess? Yes or no?
Some do and some don't. It's
Wrong.
not a yes and no question.
That's incorrect. No, that's wrong. No pendulum
No.
precesses ever. Pendulums have a specific property, like gyroscopes, but we'll focus on pendulums for the now. A pendulum only moves back and forth. Its inherent property is that it does not drift. It just moves back and forth. Now, the way the globe claim works is that because a pendulum moves back and forth, as you move underneath the pendulum moving back and forth, you see it seem to drift. Now, the seem to drift bit is the claimed proof Earth spins. Because you turn underneath it, something with an inherent property of only moving back and forth looks like it's drifting because you turn underneath. Your motion underneath it is the thing causing it to look like it drifts. But its inherent property is that in actual terms, for all pendulums, they do not drift. Okay?
So what's missing from the observation then?
An Earth
What's
actually,
missing from
the natural consequences if that were true. So what's missing from the observation? Well, I say nothing.
Is
It's a good proof of globe turn, if you ask me. Hey, check it out. I'll make a few devastating statements for flat earthers to suck on. It's a great proof of Earth turning. I mean, obviously, if Earth's turning under a pendulum, that's a brilliant proof, isn't it? Earth's turning under the pendulum. In the inertial reference frame, it's going back and forth, and there we go. We can see it seeming to drift. And that could only be because it's claimed we're turning beneath it, right? That's why it's seeming to drift, right? Because we're turning underneath it. So we're turning underneath things that are not attached in the same reference frame as the turning motion. So we're turning underneath aeroplanes then, because they're not attached either. What about hot air balloons? We're turning underneath them too, aren't we? Yeah? Continents come to a hot air balloon as they go up in the air. They just sort of hang around and a different country comes to them. That's how it works, isn't it? Because that's the natural consequences of that claim. We turn underneath a pendulum. Because if we turn underneath a pendulum to see it seem to drift, then we turn under hot air balloons and drones and aeroplanes and you if you jump up and down. And we'd notice that. It's a natural consequence of their claim. There's 15 degrees an hour Coriolis effect, perceived drift in the pendulum or gyro or anything else claimed to have Coriolis effect. The effect is induced because you turn beneath. So if we turn beneath a pendulum, we turn beneath an aeroplane. We just don't.
How can I get one of these?
It's such a good proof.
How can I get one of these unattached to Earth pendulums?
Well, they separate it. Their claim is that they separate it by way of the mechanism that it's suspended by, so that it's essentially free floating. So it can turn, and it's just going to go back and forth because that's the natural motion of a pendulum. Ergo, it is only because the ground beneath it has a motion, you see a perceived deviation in the pendulum. So what you watch, if you claim to be looking at a Foucault pendulum, what should happen is, as you watch it, it moves round. Well, the claim isn't that the pendulum's drifting around in a 360-degree turn. That's not the claim. The claim is the ground beneath it moves towards the back and forth motion of the pendulum. That's Earth turning beneath the pendulum in the claim. So it's very explicit. To have the effect, Earth must be, according to this claim, turning beneath. So that would have consequences. That's why they convolute it with examples like Coriolis with pendulums, aka Foucault's examples, because they're almost too complicated for your average Joe Bloggs normie to wrap his head around. Things like pendulums drifting. Pendulums don't drift. Well, straight away, you're at the first barrier that you've got to explain to Joe Bloggs normie.
Well, hang on. This pendulum that you saw in Sydney, was that inside of a building?
Yep.
Was that building have foundation on the ground?
Solid foundations.
Okay, and so the pendulum, the apparatus it was attached to, was that also connected to the building or the ground?
With large dynabolts, yep.
So if the ground is moving, wouldn't that thing be moving as well?
No. According to the Globe claim, the reference frame is detached because of the, according to them, special mechanism that allows the pendulum to swing around and continue to maintain its back and forth motion as pendulums do. As a result, we can see the induced effect of the ground, which is the separate non-inertial turning reference frame, turning beneath the inertial back and forth reference frame motion of the pendulum. So because it's detached on the gimbal, whatever they call it, I don't know if it's called a gimbal, but whatever, the pin that hangs it, so the pin can rotate, and then attached to the pin, there's an arm that goes through in a horizontal motion, so you can attach the pendulum to that so it can swing in one motion, back and forth. As it rotates, because the entire building is rotating around the back and forth motion of the pendulum to show the second reference frame. So that's a Foucault pendulum.
Interesting that they need to have a mechanism. It's supposed to go back and forth due to Earth turning, correct?
Yeah, you're getting too hung up on the fact that it's hanging from a building. Again, intentional. So that flat earthers can come along and say it's attached to the building. Therefore, no Coriolis drift, it's nonsense, it must be a motor, or blah, blah, blah. Then somebody who's more educated on Coriolis effect comes back and says, no, the pendulum goes back and forth, and we're seeing not actual deflection from the non-inertial turning reference frame. And the guy who's gone, it's attached to the building, goes, what? What do you mean it's in the inertial reference frame? That's the idea of doing that. Further to that, Foucault came up with a second example that is fixed in free space. That's a pendulum, a gyroscope, right? Therefore, it's totally unaffected in any regard. If the cage that's attached to the ground beneath, which is essentially the same idea as suspending this pendulum from this certain type of pin that can rotate, that's the same principle that you're trying to demonstrate when you have something that's spinning in free space. It's in this case, inertial reference frame. So likewise, if you've got a bike wheel and you spin it and you put it on the end of your finger, you're the equivalent of the building moving around the motion of the spinning wheel. Well, likewise, the building moves around the back and forth motion of the pendulum in the claim. But when you take it to a much smaller scale with something like a gyroscope, most people can wrap their head around, okay, so the gyroscope spins fixed in free space. It does not, let's get this clear for gyros now before we move forward. Gyros do not drift. That is not what they do. Their whole principle is that they remain rigid in space, not drifting. Now, if they have a mechanical deficiency to a small degree that has to be minor corrected for or balanced out, then they're trying to balance it out so it's staying fixed in space. Now, with the cage attached to it, around the gyro, like you with your bike wheel on the end of your finger spinning, right? As you move around the bike wheel, or the claim that Earth turns underneath the reference frame of the spinning gyro, you'll see the gyro seem to drift because the cage attached to Earth has moved underneath. So the gyro is a claim that you're seeing the 15 degrees an hour drift because the cage attached to the ground has moved underneath the fixed frame, that's the inertial frame of reference, of the gyro. So do we now understand how the gyroscopic motion in the demonstration with a fibre optic or ring laser or mechanical gyro is trying to be replicated on a bigger scale when you attach a pin to the roof of a building? The building and everything about it is attached to Earth, and then the reference frame that's inertial is created by that pin being able to rotate to claim to show you Earth turning underneath the pendulum. Is everyone clear? I'll repeat anything that anybody's not unclear on.
Yeah, can you go to Master B and show the two pictures and tell me why it's not happening here?
Okay, perfect example. So, tense question is why, when you have a freestanding weight dangling from a crane, why doesn't it just start moving? Well, the answer is because Earth is not rotating. Another natural consequence we would observe if we had items that had a potential pendulum motion ascribable to them. So these cranes could easily show a pendulum back and forth motion. If Earth was turning beneath them, that would be something we'd have to concern ourselves with, but don't. Likewise, if Earth was turning underneath things that aren't actually attached at all, not just demonstrating the capability of an inertial reference frame, aka the crane, or a pendulum, or a gyro, things that are literally not attached, would absolutely have the consequence of Earth turning beneath them. We just don't exhibit this effect on Earth. So the answer to your question is, why don't they do this pendulum motion? Because Earth's not turning beneath them. We'd have to cope with the fact that they were if it was, and we don't. So it's not. Hope that answers your question. Any more? Hello, Adam.
I mean, all of that sounds really cool and stuff, right? That would make reality very interesting if we've got a non-inertial and an inertial reference frame, because if I get off the non-inertial reference frame, all the things that are supposedly moving because that non-inertial reference frame is spinning should stop. And from that vantage point, aka the inertial reference frame, I should start seeing the non-inertial reference frame actually spinning like it's supposed to be. Does that happen?
No.
You and your reference frames have been ruined.
It's on screen. You and your reference frames have been ruined is a claim that Simon Dunn's debunking, us describing the claim the globe makes of Coriolis effect with two reference frames. So what I've just detailed is the globe's claim Earth turns beneath a pendulum. Well, when Simon Dunn heard that, what went through his tiny pea brain was Nathan's claiming Earth has two reference frames and then decided to debunk them and told me that they were ruined. So essentially, Simon Dunn told me that the globe Earth reference frames are ruined because he doesn't understand Coriolis. Clearly too stupid.
I mean, it's such a good proof of Earth rotation and Earth-based Coriolis that we've got rogue pilots even accounting for it when they're flying. Quite dangerous.
Okay, nice segue. So, Wolfie 6020 is claiming in comments to Anthony that he has the ability in his plane to account for Coriolis drift. Now, as I just described with the pendulum, the only way you can observe this drift is if you're attached to a turning reference frame. So you see the pendulum seem to drift because you turn beneath. Well, the pendulum isn't really drifting. It's moving back and forth. And likewise, the pendulum's just spinning in fixed space. It's not drifting. They don't drift. And likewise, planes that travel in a straight line, for you to be underneath them, going, hey, look at that plane, seem to drift, is an illusion of drift. So there's absolutely no way a plane is ever, in any circumstances, ever going to be accounting for the illusion observed as you turn beneath the plane. That's an impossibility. Again, admirably describing and showing how some of our opponents on the anti-flat earth side, in this case, Wolfie6020, simply have no clue about how Coriolis actually works. It's only observable as you turn beneath something. Like accounting for it in a plane. What, you got a Coriolis meter? Ground control to Major Idiot. I realise you're trying to impress a blonde as you fly your shitbox. Nevertheless, we have a guy observing you from a roundabout. He says you seem to be taking a corkscrew path as he turns beneath. Please turn on your Coriolis correction instrumentation immediately. Thank you.
Well, I have some news on that front. Wolfie, he wrote a comment in one of my videos. Instead of addressing the video, which I was supposed to do, he decided again to not address the video, like he always does, and to proceed to tell me that he's making a video about the Coriolis effect and how he's going to debunk all of us.
Really?
So,
Coriolis effect is an effect you can only observe as you turn beneath wings, Wolfie, and you've already demonstrated to everybody admirably that you think you correct for it in your aeroplane, making you stupid. So if you think your credibility in regards to Coriolis effect, an effect that is an illusion only observed as you turn beneath, that you said you were correcting for, is going to be taken as anything other than a good laugh by us, then you're only appealing to your own dumb audience in that regard, my friend. You've already been demonstrated to be stupid by me, haven't you, Wolfie? You don't account for drift observed as you turn beneath things from a plane, you complete idiot. How many times do I have to humiliate you with this fact you got wrong and didn't understand? You haven't got Coriolis correction equipment in a plane, you complete idiot. Even I know that. I suggested that you should be fired as a result of you thinking that you can claim to correct for an illusion only observed as you turn beneath things in your plane. I said that should get you fired. And I stand by it because it's correct. You don't understand this effect that can only be observed from the ground as you turn beneath things. You thought you were correcting for it in your plane. Very dangerous there, Wolfie. You complete bonehead.
well, he's doubling and tripling down on it. Like he doubled and tripled down on that time he cut the top off an orange and tried to explain how you could use a chord line for a distance. It's, and ignore the arc distance that's bigger and greater over the top of it. He doubled down on that. After he'd done that, he made a video about how you could cut the top off an orange and use the chord line through the orange to get your elevation angle or whatever. He doubled down. He was told he was wrong. I told him, Wolfie, no. I explained to him why. I was polite about it. No, double down. So now he's going to triple down on this complete nonsense. And he's going to even make a video about it.
But Brian, even using the orange, that's not a very appealing argument from him. But on this point, Coriolis equipment to correct for an illusion from the guy observing on the ground, I got to have me one of those.
Yeah, the thing is, Wolfie, everyone around us now understands how you got that claim wrong when you said you were claiming for drift in your plane. Yeah, we all understand and appreciate that that's a drift that's only ever going to be observed as you turn beneath the plane on the ground. Never to be accounted for from the plane. It's only an illusion from the ground if you could see it at all when you were turning beneath your little aeroplane. So you're just dumb. You're not going to salvage this, Wolfie. It's gone beyond the point of no return, my friend. No amount of, I earn loads of money is going to get you out of it either. Okay, buddy? Have a good day.
I know a few pilots. Next time I see them, I'm sorry, Chocolate. I'll be quick. I know a few pilots. Next time I see them, I'll say, hey, what's the name of that equipment you guys have on the cockpit of your plane that corrects for an illusion from the guy on the ground? What's that thing called again?
I just think it's funny that he thinks
that wasn't rhetorical. That was part of his point. Just try and follow the conversation, Chocolate. Go ahead, 10th. I know it wasn't answered, but keep going.
No, I know. When I see my pilot friends, I'll say, "What was that thing called again?" I'm not good with avionics, but it's some kind of apparatus you guys have in the cockpit where the guy on the ground, it's just some kind of Coriolis equipment. You correct for the illusion of the guy observing you drifting on the ground. What is that thing called?
Oh, the Coriolis correction meter.
I can't wait to hear the answer.
Yeah. Ground control to Major Idiot. There's a man observing you from a turning roundabout. Please turn on your Coriolis correction equipment immediately so he sees you seem to go the way you're actually going. Thank you.
Is it the guy waving or the guy throwing me a kiss?
The other thing that confuses me is that Wolfie6020, the idiot that says he claims to correct for this drift that Earth's supposed to have in the second reference frame. So him in his inertial reference frame travelling straight, being observed from a guy on a roundabout, watching him seem to take a curved path because he's turning beneath him. That's 2 reference frames with the guy watching the plane seem to curve because he's on a roundabout, right? That's 2 reference frames. Non-inertial spinning roundabout, inertial aeroplane travelling over. Okay, so that's how you have Coriolis effect. Man turning beneath other thing, looking at an illusion of it seem to drift when it travels straight. Okie dokie. And Wolfie says he corrects for that in his plane. Anyway, Simon Dan says that the reference frames in that claim that Wolfie doesn't understand and says he corrects from, he says they're ruined. So what gives there? Simon Dan saying that the reference frames that Wolfie doesn't understand and thinks he has to correct for from a flame, they don't even exist, according to Simon Dan. So what are you correcting for? Are you correcting for the drift in the inertial reference frame that's not happening there, Wolfie? Because that doesn't happen according to Simon Dan. They're ruined, mate. So you've got 2 problems. Dan saying that you don't have 2 reference frames to need to account for drift, and me saying drift's only observed from the ground, as that is absolutely the case when it comes to Coriolis. Hence your humiliation there, Wolfie. I love humiliating Wolfie, the dumbass. This is great. Thank you, whoever brought this up.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mitch.
Maybe they need to have a debate and square up which reference frames that Wolfie is correcting for and which ones are ruined.
Yeah, I agree.
Work that out.
Dan, get on Wolfie's back. He's saying he's correcting for drift in the inertial reference frame because he's a dumbass and doesn't know how this effect works. But you say they're ruined, eh? You need to get on that, Dan. There's obviously something wrong with one of you or both of you. Definitely both of them. I'm the only one right here.
That makes perfect sense. He's correcting for the ruined reference frame, so...
Yeah, that's right. He's correcting for the ruined reference frame, Dan says, that I've got on a globe Earth that's claimed to have 2 that is being corrected for in the inertial reference frame there, Wolfie? No, Dumbo.
Well, maybe he can actually show this apparatus, the Coriolis correction meter, as you labeled it. I'd like to see it and see it in more than one airplane.
Yeah, where is it in this little shitbox, Wolfie? Where's the Coriolis button? Are you going to point it out for this blonde? Hey, that's the button we press when a guy watches us from a turning reference frame below us. You see, from his point of view, it looks like we curve. So we need to correct for that. Him looking at us, looking like we correct for that. So we do reverse corkscrews. It'll be ace. You dumb idiot, Wolfie. I hope you enjoy salt.
Initiate the Coriolis correction procedure.
What you want?
Oh, you enjoy salt. Sorry.
Are we talking about how Dumbo Wolfie is?
Yeah.
I'm dipping in and out, and I caught a video yesterday. You've probably covered it, but never in all my days. Mitchell did the broken pendulum, didn't he? And he's done a video saying, "Wow, here's one that works," as if it's the mechanism that's broken that meant the other pendulum didn't work.
Oh, this gets better and better. You telling me Wolfie's talking about pendulums?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. So the pendulum has the effect of it drifting because Earth's turning beneath it, right, Wolfie? Hold on a second. Doesn't the pendulum correct for it? In the inertial reference frame, like your plane? You stupid idiot. Oh, this is getting better and better. Keep digging that hole, you Dumbo.
Hold up, Adam. The pendulum was broken, not the rotation of the
Yes,
Earth.
brother.
Oh, no,
The
it
pendulum,
wasn't
that's my
broken,
point.
Chocolate.
So
No,
Mitchell-
let's just get this straight. It just didn't have the Coriolis correction button, like in the plane. The pendulum needs that Coriolis correction button because it's in the inertial reference frame and it has to correct for what we seem to happen as we turn beneath it. Yeah, Wolfie? How'd you like the taste, you Dumbo?
No, but wait, if the pendulum wasn't actually displaying Coriolis deviation, that means that the Coriolis correction device was actually working then.
Yeah, like on these cranes,
it's-
they are fitted as standard with Coriolis correction equipment, aren't they? These have the correction, that's why they're not drifting.
Yep.
It's just like the Sexton has a magical quick sensor of the Earth mode button. It's the same thing. Just create a button. It does what you want. Bob's your uncle.
But in seriousness,
Why
let's
not?
get
They
back on
create
track.
valves too.
Let's just move on. I mean, in all seriousness, though, Wolfie is very stupid.
Wait a minute, move on. Chocolate, you mean the Sexton doesn't have that button that takes the observer 3,959 miles to the center to the equatorial plane?
I don't think it does.
Well,
I
then how
think they
do you
have a
get
20
there?
How do you get an elevation angle if it doesn't have that button?
Well, let's see if we can establish that from a globe perspective. Is there any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
No,
If you
Ruhi
could,
said
if
no.
you
You have
could,
to
you
use a
wouldn't need that button. Sorry.
Go ahead, Mitch.
no. They don't measure it from a curved baseline. Ruhi said you need a horizontal. They're not actually measuring it from the curved baseline. I don't think they even claim that, do they?
Yeah, they
You
don't
can't.
claim it. In chat, the guy said the other day, nobody claims to be getting an elevation angle from a curved surface.
Boom! Welcome to Flat Earth, fundies. That's right. The celestial sphere model was developed by elevation angle measurements from a flat baseline and then transposed onto your globe surface by way of Haversine formula, to then be transposed onto a cylinder, to then be rolled out flat. So you can claim that the flat map comes from a globe, when in fact it comes from the celestial sphere and a flat plane with elevation angle measurements possible, unlike your sphere.
Well, the thing
It's an
about it is
admission.
this. Sorry, Neil, go on.
No, I was just saying it's an admission. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, it is an admission. It is an admission. But what they're trying to do is equivocate, right, between the current dip correction and the original dip correction, and claim that there's a line that's been sent from, let's say, the sextant to the horizon, and the correction for dip is to bring that line up to the eye line, right? And this is what they keep on trying to do. They keep on avoiding that you bring the eye line down to the surface of the water. That's the whole point of it. But it doesn't really matter, because what they don't realize is that you're making a horizontal measurement, but your horizontal measurement, right, is not going to match the curve that's underneath it. So leave them off to keep claiming it. Because at any point we want, we can just show how the thing they're claiming won't work on their surface because the distances aren't going to match. You're making a horizontal measurement.
Yeah, what's the response typically, Brian? Oh, we're not talking about the surface.
Yeah,
Exactly.
they can't. Yeah, I have yet to hear even one of them. Since last year, since we started talking about this, I have yet to hear even one of them actually address the height of Y correction. They keep on just equivocating between that and the dip correction, and they say, "Oh well, dip correction is height of Y," but then they try and claim that it's an up the way thing because their dip correction is an up the way thing mathematically from a mathematical position that was back engineered from flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris.
It's a differential.
move
It's
away
a.
from
Let
the
me just
ground.
state what it is. So the dip angle / height of eye correction is the differential correction between two planes. That's what it actually is. Any evidence that
Two planes?
Two
Now they're
planes,
dealing
yeah.
with two planes.
If you establish a plane, chocolate, then you don't need to do the correction. So if you're using a natural phenomena such as the horizon to establish it as the plane, then you're establishing the flat baseline that is the ground, the flat Earth, the bit we dwell atop and are navigating, the ground. But obviously you're above that. So there's a difference between your line of sight in a horizontal and the plane of the ground below you. So you do a differential correction for that dip that you create when you look down towards the ground, essentially. That's what you're doing. You're looking down at a very small degree. So you correct for that because you want to establish horizontal. To use the tool, it just needs horizontal. So that's a correction. However, if you have a part of the tool that establishes horizontal for you, like a bubble, then there is no correction. Doesn't need correcting. All you're trying to do is establish horizontal. And because it's parallel with the plane below, both are lining up alongside one another, you don't need any correction. It works regardless, without correction.
See, because the horizon is the only steady thing at sea, that's why they correct down for sea level. Because what they're correcting for is perspective. It's perspective they're correcting for, because the horizon will appear, majority of the time, depending on the weather, but most of the time it appears to be at eye level. Not really at eye level, but it appears that way. So they can't presume that it is at eye level because they know the sea, when they're using the marine sextant, they know the sea level is the horizon. So for them, that is where their angle of view. It's an angle, it's a visual angle issue. So they correct for the height of eye above the sea, bringing the eye line down. Then they know, without a doubt, when that eye line is on the water, they know without a doubt, because it's making a horizontal with the horizon. That means they know without a doubt they have a horizontal measurement. They can't. Otherwise they just use a bubble sextant on the boat, just to create. If they could create a horizontal just with a bubble sextant or something else, they'd use it on a boat because that would be more if it would be as precise. But it's not going to be as precise, because they had instruments that did that, and they weren't ever as precise as the sextant. The sextant, there's a reason why the sextant uses the horizontal and corrects down to sea level, because that is the most precise you're going to get at sea.
Can we move on? Any evidence of the distance to the sun? It's directly linked.
It's over there. We got angles.
I have something to say when everyone has finished giving out about it. Which may be now. Right, I'll go. Right, I need to point out something. Right. A lot of people get this wrong, including flat earthers. And I'm not sure, I think Rachie might have got this wrong as well. But I can't label her with that yet because I haven't watched the video. But I know most of our opposition get it wrong. The reason that they have to claim parallel light rays, is because they're claiming a curved surface. Because they need the light rays to be parallel for the shadows we see in reality to match. So they need to match what we see in reality. And that's why they need parallel light rays, because they have a curved surface. Because divergent light rays would not give them the shadows in reality.
Who's talking? Who's doing that?
Someone's talking over me.
Birdman, can you pop yourself on mute, please? Unless you had something to add. Did you want to interject?
No, I'm sorry. I don't know how I came off mute.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sorry,
don't explain it. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. Yeah. The reason they have to claim parallel light rays is because they have a curved surface that they're claiming, and the only way for to match the shadows we see in reality over a curved surface is with parallel light rays. It has to come in parallel. But in reality, right? In reality, we have divergent light rays over a horizontal plane. They can't have a curved surface and have divergent light rays because the shadows don't work. But this is the thing. What they said was, if the shadows, right, or if the light is coming in divergent, then the shadows won't work. But if the light is coming in parallel, then the shadows will. And how they knew it would work if it was coming in parallel is because they knew it was a globe. This is the thing. So they set up a false dichotomy between two shadows, between two types of light, the divergent and the parallel. So they said, we know it's parallel because we know it's a globe. It's complete and utter rubbish, right? That's what they did. Whereas in truth, they had to hijack the Eratosthenes demonstration, which was a flat plane horizontal measurement of 500 miles. They had to hijack that because of the shadows he got, and then they had to make a claim about how light has to come in parallel because they know it's a globe. Once they added this Mach R value into what he had done, which I don't believe he ever did if he existed. But the point is that they want to talk about shadows and parallel and divergent light rays to keep people away from the very measurement that proved that parallel light rays can't exist, because we couldn't have the shadows we have if that measurement is real, and that measurement is real. That's the end of that. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah,
They're keeping people away from that.
Yeah, they do it so often, don't they? Just have a begging the question fallacy for you to have to try and overcome. It's like, no, just attack the original premise that they're basing this on, rather than going into it with the premise hanging over your head like it needs to be.
Right, it is basically derived from a presupposition of the globe, right? Because of the light shadow measurements.
Well, yeah, but it's worse than that because we have our opposition. I mean, the level of stupid of these people, like none of them, I am convinced that at least I know their model better than at least 99% of them, because they're trying to debunk, right, claims that the light comes in divergent by showing, let's say, a grouping of poles, whether it be whatever they might be, poles were in a parking lot or something like that. They're showing parallel shadows off of poles. Like, it's not the shadows is the argument, you idiots. It's not the shadows that are different if the light is one way or the other. It's the sun and the surface that has to be different, not the shadows. The whole point of the parallel light rays claim, for ye absolute idiots out there, the whole point of it, right, was they needed parallel light rays to match the shadows we see in reality. Not that if we had parallel light rays and divergent light rays, that there'd be two different shadows. That's not the claim. I laughed out loud on my own there, right, when I saw some of the things they were posting as some kind of a debunking of me saying that parallel light rays don't exist. They showed me videos of parallel shadows. Talk about not knowing your own model. Go on, sorry.
No, I'm just going to move on, unless someone else has got anything to add to that. I agree, I've seen a few people posting videos with parallel shadows on them. Like, I'm sure I saw one with a drone going up and down. Maybe it was you that posted it to me, Brian.
That was a good one in Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he was talking about Eratosthenes, but the shadows in the well were all parallel instead of divergent as they needed to be.
Why do the shadows need to... Exactly? I don't follow.
Because they're on a curved surface. But they...
Right.
The shadows weren't doing what they were
I
meant
thought
to
you
be
were
doing.
asking me in physical reality when they don't, but you're saying they should if they're on a globe. I see. Sorry, I didn't catch... Took me a second to catch up with what you were putting down there.
It was an orthographic representation. I'm sure other people have seen it.
Yeah, what he did is he added in a third position. He says it'll only work on a horizontal plane with two positions, but it won't work three. He added in a third position, right? But his third position wasn't in line with the center of his globe. I remember Dave Murphy pointing that out. He added in this third position, which was totally false. The way he said it wouldn't work across a horizontal plane was totally false. Right, the way if you look at what he did, it was totally false. But then he showed how it would work on the curved surface, but it didn't point towards the center, which it would have to do. So it was a complete and utter farce. I mean, the guy has been doing nothing but debunking his own model for years.
Is there any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No, because I can.
That would literally go against the definition of gas pressure.
And all examples in physical reality. And yet they claim this...
Yeah, that's it.
Go on, Chocolate.
I just said, yeah, that too.
And yet they claim the sky is a vacuum.
Right, but in reality on Earth, we have to use a container to create a vacuum in order to try to demonstrate gas pressure without a container. And that doesn't work.
Yeah, it fails when you try to demonstrate a ball of gas in a vacuum not dispersing into the space available. That doesn't happen. And as Arwin says, even if you try and create a false vacuum here on Earth, which takes a huge amount of containment also, you can't have gas pressure inside the vacuum chamber without dispersion. If there's any gas in there, it'll disperse throughout the container. Why? Because it moves in high speeds in all directions. The sky... I'll give the conclusion after you chat about it. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just said...
Go on.
Oh, to fill the available volume. That's all.
Well, the available volume in the heliocentric model is space. A vast, empty area, a volume for gas to fill. Well, if space is an area for gas to fill, then gas would fill it, and we'd all be dead. The sky's not a vacuum. Right. If it was, the gas would fill the space.
And it is theoretically, or colloquially, infinite. They only give a number to it because they like to calculate things about the galaxy sometimes, and they assign an arbitrary number. Otherwise, they can't do their calculations. You need a fixed volume to do the calculations.
Precisely. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Based on the show earlier, all you need is some artists.
Okay, so I'm going to release that over the weekend, actually, so the members will get to see that either on the video I've already released to the members, which is called NASA, The Cutting Edge of Art. And I also played it in the pre-show, which only members will get to see, because this is a show that will go out next Tuesday for the Nathan Oakley subscribers. But, yeah, I'll release that clip over the weekend, so on Saturday, most likely, at the usual time, this time, live time, that clip will get released. So in a couple of days from now, if you are watching this live. Or if you remember watching now.
Nathan, the irony of it all was a former astrophysicist is now an artist. That's because there is no scientific method in astrophysicism.
I would say same difference.
It's a bit of an oxymoron.
Just made up a new word.
If you say astro, you're talking about the lights in the sky. If you say physics, you're talking about physical. So there's an automatically preordained assumption that you're dealing with physicality when you deal with the lights in the sky. Now that's a, as Arwin puts it, physical assumption bias that's right baked in there into the title.
Yeah, but we have a question along the lines of any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics. Well, obviously there wasn't, so the guy became an artist.
Nah, he just came out of the closet of being an artist because he was always one. That's what you are.
What about scientific evidence of gravity?
What is it?
Bending conceptual pseudo-Riemannian force space-time.
Doesn't sound like a viable, naturally occurring phenomenon.
You said pseudo, you said conceptual. I mean, you said a bunch of shit in there that makes it sound like it's not actually real.
It isn't.
So
it's a fourth dimension we don't exist in. It only exists in the maths.
If it's pseudo-conceptual, does that mean it's real?
No.
Oh.
About any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Nothing tangible.
Global warming.
The key word is presupposed. That's what Eratosthenes presupposed the Earth was a sphere before he did his thing, and now molten iron core. Yeah, as long as you're presupposing, but no evidence.
What about any evidence of the R value? Earth radius.
Flat out elevation angles to Polaris.
That's not a... You did this at the start, didn't you? Think you're going to get me twice, do you? You sneaky little sod. No. But with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you first and foremost to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, however, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Another massive thank you to all of you watching live, smashing the super chat, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I will see you all in the next video.
Happy day.